Yo, Sal here, and today we're gonna talk about how to launch your Kickstarter campaign. So if you're like, dude, I got a freaking awesome product, like I've been working really day and night on this thing, I'm looking to launch this campaign, get like a bunch of funding on Kickstarter, this is the video for you. I wanna go through how to launch this project, how to get funding, what actually goes into a really good launch process for a Kickstarter campaign. So we're gonna be talking about all that kind of stuff. Having started Kickstarter, I'm sorry, not Kickstarter, damn, that'd be freaking awesome if I started Kickstarter. Having started the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, I've seen a lot of Kickstarter success stories. I've seen a lot of people who have come on who I didn't think their product was necessarily something that people would buy, but they end up raising like 6 figures. They end up raising 7 figures on Kickstarter. It's like, wow, that is so cool. I've really been humbled over the years, but when I first got started, there weren't really any kind of strategies, there weren't really any kind of tips that you could use or apply to your project. It was like in the dark, kind of like, it was kind of like a Wild West of crowdfunding. It sounds cooler than it was, because it's basically just like a bunch of nerds like launching these projects being like, ha 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 ha, like, we're gonna get funding. Or like me, writing about this topic and like trying to figure out how Kickstarter works, trying to figure out the principles that go into a project. It's really just like a bunch of nerds. But it's out, I mean, to call it the Wild West of crowdfunding, like that sounds pretty cool. What we've learned over the years has been a set of tried and true principles. This is everything that the crowdfunding industry can basically be boiled down into. These are the things you need to do if you want to have a strong launch period on Kickstarter. You want to get funding for your business. So I'm gonna go into that with this video. If you're new to the crowdfunding demystified community, if you haven't checked out my blog, crowdcrux.com, go and check that out. I also have kickstarterforum.org. And in addition, if you want more videos like this, you want some videos on crowdfunding, Kickstarter, how to get backers, that kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button because I share a lot of great tips on this YouTube channel. Launching a Kickstarter campaign is kind of like, putting up a rocket ship into the Earth's atmosphere and, going into space. And like maybe making contact with aliens or something like that. I don't know. But in order to have that event happen, in order to actually have this really cool freaking rocket ship go up out there into outer space, it doesn't just like happen out of thin air. You need the right fuel. You need a well-constructed rocket ship. You don't want to have like someone who has never built rocket ships before building a rocket ship and then like it explodes in the middle of the air, or it like goes off and like flies off and you lose radio signal with a rocket ship and it goes like it flies into the moon or something like that. You want to make sure that you have a plan going into this crowdfunding campaign. That's basically what I'm boiling it down to. So these are the different components that go into the campaign. There is the pre-launch period. There is the announcement of the Kickstarter campaign. And then finally, there is the funding closing period, I call it, or the fundraising duration. The last day, the last 2 days, when people can no longer get their pledge into your crowdfunding campaign. They can no longer support you. They can no longer back your campaign on Kickstarter. This is sort of the 3-tiered approach to crowdfunding. And of course, there's also the middle period, the middle period, which I call the Kickstarter slump of death, where basically, unless you plan for it, you're probably gonna see a lot of slowing of momentum. You're not gonna have as many people backing your project. This is a period you really wanna plan for and have a few things that you can do to actually boost your funding meter. And this is the entire thing that comprises a Kickstarter campaign. With most beginners, they miss out on this pre-launch period. It's kind of like they tried to send up this rocket ship, but they didn't prepare enough. They didn't have a good launch pad. They didn't have the right rocket fuel. They didn't actually research like, oh, how do I make an aerodynamic rocket? And it ends up just like blowing up in midair and not going where they want it to. So the pre-launch period is the planning period. This is really important. This is a very important part that you want to spend attention on when you're going into your Kickstarter campaign. And I will address like the #1 thing you want to focus on here. Next, with the actual announcement of your project. The announcement of your project is, it's the event. It's the thing that everyone is coming to see. This is the event where your rocket ship is finally taking off. It's taking off from the launch pad. And the only way that that's going to be a successful event is if you did everything right up front. So while it seems like a lot of attention should actually be put on the announcement of your campaign, actually most of the attention should be built up beforehand. Then there's the period where the rocket ship is in the air, it's going up into outer space. Everyone's really excited. Everyone's like secretly hoping that it doesn't like veer off course or something like that and run into a mountain or something like that. This is the period of the middle fundraising period. This is really where many of the campaigns get, that are doing like 7 figures, get a lot of steam. It's really where they're breaking away from the pack, if you will. Like if this is a race, you have a bunch of people running a race, you're breaking away from the pack in this middle period. You're doing things like advertisements, you're doing things like PR, you're doing things like going on, becoming a guest on different, podcasts, etc. You're using all these different strategies to accelerate the growth of your Kickstarter campaign. And finally, there's the fundraising duration. So the fundraising ending period. You can think of this as like your rocket ship is finally out of Earth's atmosphere. It's finally into outer space. And now you can do a lot of things once it's in outer space. You can release satellites which then like circle the Earth. You can then like go and make contact with aliens. You can land on the moon. Like there's so many different cool things you can do in outer space. At least it seems that way. I mean, in reality, outer space is dark and dismal and soundless. So I don't know how fun it would be to be in outer space, but this is what you want to think of as like the ending period. Specifically with your crowdfunding campaign, the ending period is the last chance to rally the troops. It's that urgency period where people finally, this is the last time they can back your product or support it. So there's a high degree of urgency. There's a high reason why this should go from item 10 to item number 1 on their to-do list and why they should back your product, and you want to take advantage of that. And finally, there's the part that no one really talks about. This is also the same, like the whole analogy I'm making here. We think a lot about like launching this rocket, but we don't think about what happens once it is in outer space. Like all the cool things that can happen, releasing satellites or, going to like Saturn and collecting samples or something like that, or making contact with aliens. There are a lot of different cool things you can do once you are in outer space. The same thing applies for a Kickstarter campaign. Once you fulfill your rewards, you get those products into the hands of backers, you can actually see, oh, do people like this product? Do they not like it? What do they like about it? These can be the base of a thriving e-commerce store, a thriving online shop that goes on to make you 6 and 7 figures regularly. So this is a really special and I would just say a much anticipated period for most people, and there's a lot you can do once you are a crowdfunding success, once you have successfully raised money on Kickstarter. After you've done the initial validation for the product, after you've actually gone out there, you've surveyed people, you've talked with people, you understand this is a product that people want to buy, this is something that people want to exist in the world, your focus should be on one thing: building your pre-launch email list. You want to build up a list, an email list specifically, of people who are interested in your early bird reward tiers, are interested in buying the product. You want to build up this list. And ideally, the most common way that crowdfunders do this is by using something like a landing page. So they use software like Lead Pages to send people to this landing page, and Lead Pages actually powers the landing page. Then it converts into an email subscriber. And they can send cold traffic via Facebook. They could send traffic from events that they go to. They hand out a business card. It could be any kind of way you get visitors to this landing page. They then convert into the funnel and they convert into email subscribers. So number 1, focus on your email list. Number 2, in the announcement stage of the campaign, what you want to do is very simply communicate the value of checking out this campaign right now. Why is it that people should check this project out right now? Could be early bird reward tiers, could be the chance to claim limited rewards, and the fact that these rewards aren't going to be always available. Really try and sell the product, make people excited to check out the campaign. You want to get people to click the link wherever you share it and go and check out that project. and to back as soon as possible. You want to have as many backers as possible within the first 3 days of the launch period. You really want to make sure that you've done enough pre-launch so you have people that are willing to back your project within the first 3 days of your launch process. Now, the middle of your campaign, this is where a lot of people usually fall, they stumble and they fall, or they lose momentum, or they actually aren't able to raise money successfully on Kickstarter. This is the secret period where I think can make or break your campaign, quite honestly. If you haven't had a strong first week, it's also super critical that you focus on your middle campaign period. And the number one thing you want to focus on in this middle period is you want to have an advertising budget. You want to have a budget that's already been put aside to focus on not only doing Facebook ads, but also doing other kind of media blasts, doing other kind of things like sending out, trying to send products to bloggers to get them to write about you, to send them to influencers. Ideally, you should have done that beforehand, but also just bread and butter Facebook ads, sending traffic to your campaign. You want to set aside a budget. I'm talking like $5,000 here if possible, to actually broadcast the message about your campaign. At the end, you're talking about the final stages of the rocket, before it goes out into outer space. And this sort of period here, I think, is where many campaigns will see the last bump in pledges. And the reason here is that there is urgency. There's urgency for people to actually back the project because they don't get to, but you have to communicate that urgency that they're not going to have it forever to be able to be a part of this community. They're not always going to be able to back this project. They only have the next 2 days or the next 24 hours to back your campaign and become a part of your community. You have to communicate that urgency, with words, with sharing that message, with broadcasting it to your email list. Send that message of urgency to your backers to get them to get their pledge in before the campaign duration finishes. That is the number one thing you want to focus in for the last 1 to 2 days of the campaign. And finally, you want to focus on the reward fulfillment after that. Just creating a really great product, not being one of these like really shitty Kickstarter campaigns that don't deliver on their product or have really bad product. That's not the recipe for building a healthy business. You want to have a good product. I've interviewed over 170 guests on the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. There have been over 7,000 members on kickstarterforum.org that have registered. I have over 10,000 members on crowdfundingforum.com. Lots and lots of people have read my books and consumed my podcast, my videos, etc. The number one reason that campaigns are successful is because they educate themselves before going into this process. It's very simple. If you want to get good at something, you have to learn about it. If you want to get good at something like writing, you have to study it. You have to do it. You have to seek out mentors. You have to actually seek out, books and different things you can use to learn about the best practices of writing. If you want to get good at, something like flying a drone, I like to fly drones. It's kind of like one of my pastimes. You have to learn. You have to be willing to go through the technical bits of it. You have to also learn the art of it. You have to be willing to educate yourself before you actually enter this fundraising campaign, this fundraising period. So if you are ready to do that, this is going to make the biggest difference in terms of whether or not you are successful on Kickstarter. I invite you to join my free course below, which goes into how to get backers, how to trigger emotions that are going to make people want to support your project, and most importantly, how do you rope in media attention? How do you get people talking about your project? How do you get people interested in your Kickstarter campaign? I talk about all of that in the free course down below. I urge you to go and check it out. And if you haven't already, put education as a priority on your to-do list. Check out my book. Check out this more videos on this YouTube channel. Check out my podcast. There are a lot of, it doesn't even have to be mine necessarily. There are a lot of free, there's a lot of free information out there on YouTube. There's a lot of free information out there in the world of crowdfunding that I've worked very hard to create. But just remember that in terms of free information, you're only getting a very surface level idea of crowdfunding. All the kind of stuff, you think of like an iceberg. You're seeing the top of the iceberg, but everything that happens below the surface that actually causes the actual entire mass of the iceberg. Everything that goes into the launch strategy that raises 6 and 7 figures on Kickstarter is behind the scenes. So I show you that, but it's only in my premium training. It's only in my premium courses. And the reason here, a lot of people ask me like, hey Sal, why do you charge to learn? Like that doesn't make very much sense. And you think about it, anytime that you've actually had quality education that's done something for you in your life, like maybe you've been able to get a better paying job because you went to college, or maybe you're able to get a better paying job because you did your MBA. Anytime that you want something quality, you have to be willing to pay for it. And I know that saying that and putting that out there probably gonna get a lot of hate, but it's true. It's very true. It's taken me time. It's taken me 4 years to accumulate all of this information and all of this strategy. So I share all of that kind of stuff with you in my premium training courses. I go very surface level more so here on YouTube. I want you to have some free education, but I also want to give you the premium training that's going to make the biggest difference in terms of whether or not you are successful on Kickstarter.